Listen, I have more than a 30-year professional career. Because once again, I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. I have a career that's probably comparable to Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Sigourney Weaver. They all came out of Yale. They came out of Juilliard. They came out of NYU. They had the same path as me. And yet I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it. And yet I have to constantly get on that phone and people say, "You're a black Meryl Streep." You are, and we love you. We love you. There is no one like you. And if there's no one like me, you think I'm that? You pay me what I'm worth. You give me what I'm worth.
Hollywood presents itself as a land of merit, creativity, and opportunity. But beneath the glamour lies a history of systemic exclusion, particularly of Black artists. The narrative that talent alone determines success is false. For over a century, Black actors, Black writers, and Black directors were intentionally restricted from meaningful roles, fair pay, and creative control.
Jessica Chastain, we're really good friends, and we were talking about pay equity and with men and women. And she was like, "It's time that women get paid the same as men." I'm like, "Yeah, Jessica, it's time." And then I said, "But here's the thing, women of color on that spectrum, we make far less than white women. So if we're gonna have that conversation about pay equity, we gotta bring the women of color to the table." And I told her my story and we talked numbers, and she was quiet and she had no idea that that's what it was like for women of color. She said, "Octavia, we're gonna get you paid on this film." I said, I would love to do your film, but here's the thing, I'm gonna have to get paid. And then she said, "Of course, and you and I are gonna be tied together. We're gonna make the same thing." And fast forward to last week, we're making 5 times what.
Hollywood has always been about storytelling, but whose stories get told and by whom? It's governed by race and profit. The entertainment industry, from its earliest days, mirrored society's racial hierarchies.
Louis B. Mayer is probably the most unknown man who controlled Hollywood. Louis B. Mayer started Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer production company, and one of his daughters actually married the second in charge of Paramount, and his second daughter married the vice president of 20th Century Fox. This meant that Louis B. Mayer had a hand in 3 of the biggest film production companies in the world, and he actually controlled a lot of Hollywood at the time. Not only this, but he also started the Academy Awards, which meant that he was able to get a lot of his own production companies to be nominated for Academy Awards, higher than a lot of other production companies.
White producers and studio executives determined not only who appeared on screen, but what roles they could occupy. Indigenous, Black, and other non-white performers were marginalized, typecast, or erased entirely. Their labor exploited, while recognition and wealth flowed almost exclusively to white artists and executives. It was segregation by design. In the silent film era and beyond, Black performers were often confined to degrading stereotypes: the mammy, the servant, the exotic other. Blackface and minstrel traditions dominated early Hollywood, allowing white actors to perform caricatures of Black people while excluding authentic Black representation. Even as cinema evolved, systemic segregation persisted.
Did you know the first Black movie star in Hollywood became famous by playing a stereotype that white America loved, but Black America hated? His name was Stepin Fetchit, and his career shows how Hollywood turned racism into entertainment. Lincoln Perry, better known as Stepin Fetchit, rose to fame in the 1930s. He was the first black actor to become a millionaire in Hollywood. But there was a catch. He only got those roles by playing what studios called the laziest man in the world. Slow-talking, shuffling, ignorant. White audiences laughed, black audiences cringed, because every time he was on screen, he reinforced the worst stereotypes, that black people were lazy, stupid, and undeserving of respect. It wasn't just movies. His image bled into real life. Teachers, bosses, even politicians used Stepin Fetchit as a slur against black workers and students. For one man to succeed, an entire community's image was sacrificed. Stepin Fetchit proves how Hollywood sold out black dignity for profit.
Black performers were barred from starring roles in mainstream films. Interracial relationships were taboo on screen. Professional unions often excluded black actors, limiting their access to higher-paying productions. This was not incidental. It was by deliberate mechanisms to maintain white dominance in the narrative and in financial control of Hollywood.
Well, Hattie McDaniel goes to the Academy Awards in 1940, and it's a whites-only ballroom. She's only there because an exception is made for her to attend. And the cast and the producer, David O. Selznick, are all sitting together at the Gone with the Wind table, but Hattie McDaniel is not seated there. We have an image of her the night that was taken where you can barely see her face at the bottom of the picture because she's so far on the edge of the room, like she's kind of just allowed to be in there. She's a nominee.
The best performance of an actress in supporting roles during 1939 to Hattie McDaniel.
I have often thought about what it was like for her, that walk from the table to the stage, from that kind of indignity of being semi-segregated in that space, to accept this award.
Even just noting the length of that walk feels like a metaphor for being a black woman in Hollywood.
Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science, fellow members of the motion picture industry, and honored guests. This is one of the happiest moments of my life.
She actually rewrote the speech that she was supposed to give. The studio had written a speech for her, but she delivered a different one that talks about being a credit to her race, which really meant a lot to her.
I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel. And may I say thank you.
Hattie McDaniel broke barriers as the first black actor to win an Academy Award for her role in Gone with the Wind, 1939. Yet even in victory, the limitations of segregation were starkly evident. She was not even allowed to sit with her all-white co-stars at the Oscars ceremony, and many Hollywood venues barred her entirely. McDaniel's talent was recognized, but at what cost? Her humanity was constrained by the industry's racist policies. Her experience exemplifies the duality of early black Hollywood success: recognition without equality, visibility without opportunity, accolades without access to power and pay. Hollywood applauded her performance, but did nothing to challenge the systemic inequities that confined black artists to marginal roles and spaces. Then we had Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge's career had a similar pattern in the 1950s. She became the first black woman nominated for Best Actress, a historic achievement, yet her trajectory was constantly constrained by racial prejudice. Studios refused her leading roles opposite white actors, marketed her only in exotic or typecast parts, and denied her the agency her talent warranted. Despite her groundbreaking performances, Dandridge's career demonstrates that even critical acclaim did not dismantle Hollywood's systemic racism. Black artists could break through barriers individually, but institutions themselves remained rigidly exclusionary. The exclusion of Black artists extended beyond casting. Screenwriters, directors, producers of color were largely blocked from influential positions. Unions, studio contracts, and financing opportunities often favored white creatives. Hollywood's labor system ensured that Black actors were often limited to supporting roles, token appearances, or niche race films that received little mainstream attention or budget.
But I'm saying if there's going to be a double standard, let's talk about it. And more so, I think we should point the finger at the Academy, because if the Academy wants to step up and say you are going to be held accountable for your past, they should be held accountable for their past. They treated us wrong for so long. Hattie McDaniel had to sit in the back corner of the Oscars the night she won an Oscar for Gone with the Wind and had to be segregated.
Interracial romance, leadership roles, and creative control were largely off limits. These structural barriers were maintained for decades, ensuring that Black voices could participate only minimally and under strict conditions dictated by white executives. Even as Hollywood began integrating more Black performers into the mainstream productions, inclusion was superficial. Black characters were frequently given minimal screen time, reinforcing stereotypes while masking the industry's continued exclusion. The system allowed token visibility, but not systemic power or narrative agency. This pattern of tokenism and underrepresentation is one that continues to reverberate in Hollywood today.
Imagine being the lead actor of a box office hit, but you were lowballed. That's what allegedly happened to Terrence Howard, who claims Paramount owes him 2 decades worth of residuals and performance royalties. The actor, known best for his role in Empire, was also the lead actor DJ in the 2005 film Hustle and Flow, where he said he took home only $12,000 despite the movie reportedly grossing $75 million.
Check this out. I made $12,000 for doing Hustle and Flow. And then on top of it, what Paramount did, instead of putting my name as Terrence Howard performing the songs, they put performed by DJ. Well, they own DJ. So guess what? The performance royalties went to Paramount.
He also revealed that at the time he was just worried about paying his rent, but now might have to sue the entertainment conglomerate and write a letter asking for 20 years worth of money he's owed.
I made $6,000 doing Crash. The business don't pay actors anything. That's why the strike is going on. Actors are struggling.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm tired of hearing my sisters say the same thing over and over. You get tired. I hear people go, "You work a lot." Well, have to. The math ain't mathing.
I think Taraji is amplifying a lot of actors and actresses that are melanated, what we've been saying for years. I mean, Viola Davis does an epic job of doing it in most of her interviews, talking about how there is inequities when it comes to Black and other actors, and where actors, Chadwick Boseman, gave up some of his money so that his other actors could make more money.
Yeah. But you think this was just a time for that to be heard, because Monique been screaming that for the longest too?
I got labeled as difficult, my husband and I, and my husband is Sydney, who happens to be my manager. We got labeled as difficult because I said one word, and that was no. Now, I said no to some very powerful people. I said no to Oprah Winfrey. I said no to Tyler Perry. I said no to Lee Daniels. And I said no to Lionsgate. And the difficulty came in when people that look like me, like Oprah, Tyler, Lee Daniels, and I gotta put my brother Steve on the list. Y'all knew I was not wrong. Each one of you said to me, Monique, you're not wrong. And when I heard you go on the air and you said, my sister done burnt too many bridges and there's nothing I can do for her now. Steve, do you know how hurt I was? When I saw Taraji broken on those platforms, it was painful to watch. However, Taraji and I had a conversation over a decade ago.
Yes.
In my trailer when I was doing the Monique show. And she said, you know, you got to keep on getting it until your turn comes. And I said, Taraji, most of us die before our turn comes. See, Whoopi Goldberg told me the salary she makes from The View, and that hurt my feelings, that you've been there for 10 years and you accept them paying you that, and you telling me, don't worry about the little one coming up. Damn if I ain't gotta be worried about you too, because you accept that salary, it makes it hard.